Nobody has shofars like we do. All around the world, in all the synagogues, the shofars were blowing, but none of them sounded like ours.
Good thing.
I'm a little hoarse today. Who knows what this is called? Grogger. Only Israel would come up with a word like that. There was a Jew in Shushan named Mordecai. He was an official in the king's court. His cousin, whom he adopted, was among the beautiful maidens of Shushan brought to the palace for the contest. Her name was Hadassah. Amen. Soon thereafter, Mordecai overheard two servants plotting to kill the king. So he told Hadassah, and Hadassah told the king, and they thwarted the plan to overthrow the king, right? So sometimes afterward, the king promoted Haman. If you hadn't noticed, this is a short form.
Yeah. It says the whole one on here.
Yes, you can read the short 8 chapters of Hadassah. But he was appointed to position of minister, and all those in the palace court knelt and bowed before Haman. Except one person, Mordecai! And that's the end of the book. Okay, but because Mordecai wouldn't bow down, the bad guy decided to kill all the Jews in Babylon, where this is during the 70 years of time in Babylon. And Haman persuaded the king to go along with this evil plan. And I didn't do the first part of the book because it's about women are supposed to obey. And when they don't, they get kicked out. That's the first chapter of Hadassah. So you want me to read that chapter? I think Paul was quoting from it to some extent in his work. In every province of the land, Jews could be fasting, weeping, and wailing because of this evil edict. And Mordecai tells Hadassah, you got to go help your people. But she can't go in without permission or she would be put to death. There's only one exception, and that's if the king extends the scepter. Then she doesn't get put to death. And she hadn't been called in for some time. So Morty says to Das, who he adopted, it's his cousin, he says, maybe, who knows, but maybe you've been raised up for such a time as this. Amen. And he says, you are also a Jew. Do not assume that you alone will escape our terrible fate. If you keep silent, you will surely die as well. Perhaps you will become queen for such a time as this. So they're all fasting, and Das gets invitations to these banquets, and we're almost through the book. But that night we have Xerxes the king. He could not sleep. So we have the divine providence here at work. He can't sleep. So when you can't sleep, you turn on the news. And he had the court records read to him. And this would put anybody to sleep, right? But what is read to him right away is about the plot to kill the king was thwarted by Mordecai. And so he's just half asleep, and he goes, "So what did we ever do for that guy anyway?" And the attendant says, "Nothing." And so he says, "We got to do something for this guy." So anyway, about that time, Haman comes in and says, "What would be done? What should be done for somebody?" Or the king goes, "What should be done for somebody the king honors?" And he thought he was talking about Haman. Haman said, "Well, he should be paraded around town on a horse and declared to be the goodest guy in town." And so the king goes, "Okay, yes, do this for Mordecai." And Haman was upset. He hated Mordecai because Mordecai would not bow down. And so they had to lead him around town on this fancy horse and shouting, "He who the king honors." And so we have these two banquets then, and the edict had been put into place. And remember from our Daniel story, edicts in Persia cannot be repealed. And so the Jews all have to die, and because the king went along with the evil guy's plan. And remember, when did they find out? They cast lots on the 14th of Adar, which is yesterday, or the day before in Israel. This is Shushan Purim here. But they cast lots to see when the Jews all have to be put to death. And it was in March. But they were revealed when this plan was going to take place. When did the Jews find out about it? On the 14th of Nisan, the first day of Passover, the celebration of freedom. They came out of Egypt in the Exodus, have the great celebration every year of Pesach. Now on Pesach they find out, no, you're all going to die. And you have 11 months to worry about it. Okay, so we come along to the story, and this evil edict has been written and it cannot be repealed. So Hadassah says, "If it pleases the king, let me have you write another edict." And this edict was that the Jews can defend themselves. It wasn't undoing that they can be killed. It is saying that they can defend themselves. This reminds me of Rabbi Meir Kahane. What did he say after the Holocaust? He's the one that said, "Never again." And everybody thinks that never again a Holocaust. And he goes, no, that's not what he said. Never again without a fight. And so this actually started here in Purim, the fighting parts. Anyway, everybody in Babylon had great fear of the Jews at this point, and so the Jews killed a bunch of them, but not a lot of them actually converted to Judaism. Because, read the end of the book of Esther. A lot of the Babylonians converted to Judaism because they feared the God of the Jews. Okay, so what else? Okay, that's the book of Esther. So the king had Haman executed, and he. I tell you, we're a rowdy bunch here. But how do you execute? And in Persia, the mode of execution was impaling. You would be impaled. But somehow or another, the king found out that Haman had built a gallows, the tallest gallows in the history of the world. And so the king says, just hang Haman on his own gallows. And that's what happened, and they also, his family as well, the sons and all that, were hanged also. Okay, a few points about Purim though. We'll bring it up to modern day maybe. But remember, this is the book, the only book in the Bible where God is not in the book. And so it is a book of providence. God is always working behind the scenes. whether or not you know it or not. They were in Babylon. Some of the Jews say the reason God is not in the book is because he hid his face from Israel while in the diaspora of Babel. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but he was hiding his face, but he was not hiding his actions. And as obvious, there's a whole list of divine appointments that we've gone through over in past years. But Mordecai, remember, is from the tribe of Benjamin. He is a descendant of Saul, right? And Haman is a descendant of Agag, the Amalekite. We have two pictures here that go way back to the Exodus out of Egypt, when the Amalekites were the cowards that sought the ones hanging behind and killed them and robbed them and killed them. So what these were way back in the Exodus from Egypt. We had something today what we would call terrorists, taking innocent people and robbing them and killing them. It's not war. It is murder, and that's called terrorism, right? And this is where Haman comes from. He is an Amalekite. And the reason we make noise when we say Haman is because God says his name shall be blotted out. And we make noise when we read the scroll, the Megillah of Esther here, to blot out this evil name from under heaven. This is the origin of the grogger and the making noise. So there is this lineage now, and I got so many notes here, I'll just kind of bounce around. They'll probably make no sense by the time I'm done, but you're used to that somehow. But we go from Exodus 17 with the Amalekites. You go about 500 years future, and you have Saul as king, and he spares Agag, the Amalekite. And this is what cost Saul his kingship, is because he didn't blot the name out forever. He spared the king, the evil king, and Samuel comes along and kills the evil king and tells Saul your history. Now you add about 500 years to that, and you come to the Purim story that we just read in Babylon there. And then you add about 2,500 years to that, and you come to the story today. And today, this story is repeating as we talk today. This story is being repeated in the earth. But we have Mordecai now. He comes from Benjamin, which also was Saul's tribe. And so he undoes Saul's mistake. And Saul lost his kingship. Mordecai got appointed second in command of the whole nation of Babylon. And so when you keep the commandment, there's a blessing, and Saul was gone, Mordecai is lifted up. But it was the original fight way back in Exodus, and then to Saul's time, and then to the Purim story, and then to us today. So we remember that Hadassah was an orphan in the story. She had no one to take care of her. And Mordi adopts her as his cousin, and adopts her and takes care of her, and stayed at the palace gate all the time, protecting and watching over her and doing intercession for her. I would tell you all today that your name on Purim is Mordecai. You are a Mordi. A Mordi, that's what they call me in Israel. It's Mordi. I never thought I looked like a Mordi to say. But yes, Mordi is the one who adopts the one who needs adopted. Now, this is why I want to tell you all that your name is Mordecai today, is because what have you been doing for the last 2 or 3 decades? You have been adopting the Jew, as the Jew has no friend in the world except the Christian Zionist. You can't say the church, because more than half of the church is anti-Semitic. But there is a part of the church that is in this mode, this intercession of adopting Israel and being a friend to Israel. And we speak faith into our Jewish friends. We tell them, your God reigns. We tell them who they are. We affirm their chosenness as Gentile Christians. So we really fit the story here of Mordecai. We do intercession. We watch over. They have no other friends in the world. They are alone, except for the Zionist Christian church part, the part of the church that's Zionist. So Morty encourages Hadassah, tells her this, and I love that part where the scepter, if the scepter is not extended, you die. I mean, these are tough rules. I don't know. Maybe we should adopt some rules like that around here. But can you imagine Hadassah going in without an invitation? And she's like, okay, I'm either going to get the scepter or I'm going to get the sword. And she steps in. Now Mordecai knew the scepter would be extended, or he would have never sent her in there. He loves her. You all know that the Jew will be accepted in these days. As the people that you are, see, you can tell Hadassah, the scepter will be extended to you. God will extend his scepter. And she touches it. And she is, and what does the king say? He says, ask what you will to half the kingdom. I'll give you everything you want. See, this is Hashem. This is the God of Israel in the last days, ready for them to extend their hand. And so we can tell them, extend your hand, touch the scepter. It's your time. The time to favor Zion has come. So it's their time. It hasn't been their time, but it is now coming their time. And God has raised up people like you now for such a time as this to be the encourager, the intercessor, the one who adopts and loves and cherishes. And we do not do it to make them like us. We do it because they are God's people. See, and this is where the church is a little bit backwards. Now we want to do the gospel and everything, but your adoption has to be a love issue, not an issue of making them somebody else. How about you just love your children because of who they are? See, and this is what's been missing for 2,000 years. They need to be loved right where they're at, who they are, and encouraged, and then God will extend the scepter, and we will be celebrating their salvation. Anyway, I'll just get carried a little bit away with that. But today, Persia today is Iran, and so we have this modern day Haman trying to get nuclear weapons right now, right today. And the current administration seems to want to let them, like the one before, two before that did it too. I'm trying to behave on Facebook here, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. But there are a lot of people watch us, and I don't know who is watching. Is it the CIA? It could be. The NSA? I mean, they already know me. I've been red tagged already for some reason. They said you're red tagged. I go, what for? And they go, we can't tell you. We can only tell you that you've been flagged. Well, it's good to be popular, have attention. But the Amalekites today are modern day terrorists. And as I was going to say, what Shorashim has been saying, we've all been watching all the news on Russia and Ukraine, and the pros and cons of everything that's going on. And And I was asked by a pastor, is this the Gog-Magog war coming up or something? And I had to tell him that Gog is not Russia. To get away from that teaching, and we've been through this in my school and stuff, but it's Turkey. Gog and Meshach and Tubal, all those cities are in Turkey. What do we have with Russia, though, is we have wars and rumors of wars. See, this is what Yeshua said there'd be leading up to the fourth seal. He says, but that's not the end. Then the end will come. So what we have in Ukraine is wars and rumors of wars. It's somebody that wrote the Bible must have said the truth. But what Shorashim has been posting is that the only winner in this war over there is Islam. And then they go into all the political details, which is a little over my pay grade with all the names and stuff. But they're saying that when this is over, Islam will win, and that Putin's biggest nightmare is Islamic Russia. And they project in a decade or two that Russia will be over 50% Muslim. And and the Europeans are thinking that in the next decade or so that there'll be at least 3 more Muslim states created in Europe. So we have the Islamization of Europe and Asia there, but this is the chess players being arranged on the world stage to set up the Beast Kingdom, and Turkey and Iran are the 2 big players, Sunni, Shiite, and all that. So anyway, that we have the Amalekites today, though, still with Persia, trying to get a nuclear bomb for one reason. They want to destroy the Jews again. So Haman is here today doing the same exact thing as the one did 25 centuries ago. Wanting to kill the Jews. Now, why are people so obsessed with killing the Jews? The same reason we're obsessed with loving them.
Yes.
They're God's chosen people.
That's right.
Unbeliever or believer,
Yes.
the descendants of Yaakov are God's chosen people. And in the end, all Israel will be saved, right? I know we're going to have fun with that day. I don't know what else to go to here, but you guys are Mordecai's. Isaiah 40 says, "Comfort my people, speak tenderly to Jerusalem." And this is a commandment to the world, to the Gentiles. Comfort my people, and that's what you all have done. Tell her your God reigns in Yeshayahu 62. The watchman on the wall, you who call on the Lord, that would probably be most of us, give yourselves no rest, and give him no rest. Now, see, half the eternal purpose of God is entirely wrapped up, centered on Israel, Jerusalem, and the Jew, and then the Gentiles are added into that. But the initial plan, first of all, is Israel. And so the church takes Israel out of the plan, and we put Israel back into the plan, right? And until he establishes Jerusalem and makes her a praise of all the earth. So in 8 weeks we'll be dancing in Jerusalem, making her a praise of all the earth, with all of the Israeli kids for Yom Yerushalayim. And then in Yirmiyahu 31 we have the watchman. A day when watchmen cry out, "Come, let us go up to Zion, to the Lord our God." And we're going to go up to Zion. And the watchman word here, though, remember, is the netzer word from the branch word. From a stump will come from the branch. The stump, a branch will come from the stump of Jesse. That netzer word here is the branch word, and this is the modern word in Israel for Christians, because we follow the Nazarene. The Nazarene, we follow the Nazarene, we follow the branch. And so we're called branchites by the Jews because we follow the branch, which is the Nazarene, if you want to use that word. It's Notzrim. Okay. Remember, too, that the rebirth of Israel followed a similar pattern to the Purim story with the Alfred Dreyfus trial in France. That was an attempt by the nations to kill the Jew and to discredit the Jew, and this turned into the birth of the nation. And so it's kind of a parallel. But where should we end up here? We'll just go to worship. But I appreciate you all for being who you are. I think, what should we do? It's time to worship. Genesis 12:3 is in effect. Nachon, Nachon. Oh, I was going to say today that when the beast kingdom is assembled, there will be the AC, the anti-Messiah, and he was pictured by Haman in the Purim story. The AC will try to kill the Jews, and we have the picture of Antiochus in Daniel, which was written at the same time in the same place. And we have Haman in the story of Hadassah. Both of them are pictures of the AC coming soon to the world now to kill the Jews. Amen? Amen. So next week we'll return to Daniel, and we are in we're coming to chapter 8. Chapter 8 blew my mind so bad that it's just taken me a little while to recover. But chapter 8 has some. If you are a Temple Institute fan, if you love the idea of this house being rebuilt, chapter 8 is going to be your chapter. There's stuff in there I never have seen before, but it is great. And like with the church and its disregard of Israel for the most part, replacement theology, supersessionism. Why do people have to make big words out of this? Why say supersessionist? If you can just say replacement. It's easier. I can spell replacement. But the idea of the temple, though, is still, I mean, if I wished I could have a percent, how much of the true church of the last days is really excited and praying for the rebuilding of the temple? I wished I knew a percent. What God would just tell you, it's 50% of all the church. 100 million, 200 million people praying for. Does anybody have an idea what the percent is? But chapter 8 of Daniel is so going to be so. Anyway, you have to come back, I guess, to hear that. But the temple Israel is the center of God's end time plan. Jerusalem is the center of that end time plan. The temple is the center of that end time plan. And so you just go from the nation, the people, to the city, to the temple, and it's going to be great. And so when we're over there, we will take some money for that cause as well, as you already have money invested in the rebuilding of all the items for the temple. And as some of you have given gold, zahav, and it's actually been made into articles that will be used when the sacrifices are started up again. And so it's a fascinating thing. But anyway, we're going to have some worship time. And if you need prayer or anything, just go over there by the communion table and wave your hand and get somebody to pray for you. Yavareka Adonai v'yishmereka. Ye'ir Adonai panav eleka v'chunecha. Yiso Adonai panav eleka v'yoseim l'ka shalom b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach ksar HaShalom. Amen and amen and amen. The Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and to be gracious unto you and lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of the Prince of Peace, Jesus the Messiah. Amen and amen. Hag Sameach. Happy Purim. Thank you, Mordecai's. 2 hats are always better than one.
Yeah.